Welcome to the Serene-ish podcast. We're two friends trying for serenity, but life happens.
I'm Larissa.
And I'm Brenda.
And we're glad you're here.
Each week we share honest conversations about navigating everyday life, faith, relationships, soul care, and all the messy in-betweens.
You'll hear reflections, a little laughter, and hopefully encouragement to find peace in your own journey, even if it's just serene-ish.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Serene-ish. I am Brenda Renderos, and this is my wonderful friend, Larissa Marks. Hi, Larissa.
Hi, Brenda. Hi, everybody.
Oh, man, I am really excited to have a chat today. But before we do, if you are a new listener, I just wanted to kind of remind everyone what the Serene-ish actually is all about. So both Larissa and I come from coaching, spiritual direction, spiritual formation backgrounds, and we do a lot of work in the area of spiritual practices and life balance, and that can mean so many different things depending on the person, your season of life, your cultural background, but we're all looking for a place of just some peace and serenity, so to speak. But something that we have both come to realize is that usually what you're going to get is the serene-ish, because life happens, and instead of beating ourselves up by not getting to that full place of serenity, we have just learned to embrace the messiness and the beauty of serene-ish. You know, it's kind of like the goat yoga that we like to laugh about. You're out there just doing your stretches and your moves, and you've got the most amazing lines, and then a goat jumps on you. What are you going to do? And maybe if you don't have goats, you're like me, where I have pets. I have 2 cats and a dog, and when I'm working out at home and they see the mat come out, they think it's time to play the game. Let's see if we can knock her down. And you just learn how to roll with it. So if that is you, you're just trying to figure out how to roll with it, then you know what? You're in the right spot, and we're going to be friends. We're going to be good friends. So just a little reminder of what this Serene-ish is all about. But Larissa, with that said, have you had any Serene-ish moments in the last, couple of weeks or so?
Oh man, have I ever. I feel like each day comes up with a new little fun, unexpected moment. Last week, or maybe about 2 weeks ago, I have had lower back pain kind of off and on, but 2 weeks ago, I had like a really bad flare up in my lower right back, and it hurt so much I couldn't even stand up straight for a couple days. But so that kind of to me was like a signal, like, okay, there's a couple stretches that I've learned along the way that help with the back pain and kind of help like it subside. So I was taking ibuprofen, and I was trying to do these daily stretches, and I mean like several times a day. So I was setting a timer, like every 1 hour, make sure to get on the floor and do a few of these stretches. One of the stretches, which I found as like the most effective, is literally lying like face forward on the floor, and relaxing, especially my back and my hips and my butt area. So I'm like face down on the floor for several minutes, and like kind of consciously allowing all of those lower muscles to like melt into the floor, if that makes sense. Right? If you're not conscious, most of us have some tension that we just hold in our bodies, right? But I was trying to do that all week last week to help my back pain. Every time I did this, Austin, our 5-year-old, felt like it was an invitation to jump on me, on my back. And so I'm like trying to relax, but also like tell this little baby goat, Austin, like, please do not jump on mommy's back. Please stop.
Oh my gosh.
So there were a couple times I had to like go into one of our bedrooms and lock him out. And while he's like banging on the door, like, mom. So I feel like that was my own experience of like trying to be calm, trying to relax my actual literal muscles and everything, while also being like just interrupted by this sweet little boy who just wants to be with his mom and play and all that. So those are mine.
How's your back feeling now?
It feels better than it did last week. So
Good.
that's a win. Yeah.
There you go. So there you
go.
go. Healing did come. You're getting better. You're getting
That's
better.
right.
I like how you called him your little baby goat. That was sweet. That's very sweet. Yeah, let me see. I have had a Serene-ish moment. I don't know if you remember, you and I were on a Zoom, and I was somewhat distracted. I was in my backyard because there was like some birds in a tree, our neighbor's tree across the yard from us, and then they were squawking like crazy. And then my dog started trying to he was like jumping up and down, trying to climb up on the fence. And there was a squirrel. All of this happening at the same time. And I figured out there's probably a nest in there. Well, I guess at some point, Mama Bird and Papa Bird had their baby. And so there's now the baby bird.
Bird.
Yes. And I go out in the backyard, and this is my ritual. I eat my lunch out in the backyard. But Mama Bird and Papa Bird have gotten even more protective. And so they swoop down, they sit where I'm at, full dead-on stare at me, squawking like crazy. So then that turns into a conversation of me reminding them that this is my yard and I have every right to sit in my chair in my yard, and that I am not here to harm anyone. I just want to eat my lunch outside.
Right.
And so it becomes like a whole thing.
Wait, do you feel like they are listening and have responded to you, or do they just keep staring at you?
I genuinely believe that they understand me. I really do. The eye contact that they're making with me, and then they leave. And then I think so. Because here's what I'm thinking. This bird, which I didn't realize was the baby bird, because it's not as small as like some birds that I see. It looks like like a junior higher bird. Feathers aren't quite there, but he's having a hard time figuring out how to fly. He's doing a lot of hopping. And so he's ended up on the actual grass of our yard. And so we were really nervous, and we were trying to pick him up, see if we can get him to higher ground. But the birds are squawking. So Mia, my daughter, she went out to try and see if she could scoot the bird to a good spot. And the birds actually came doing a dive into her, to the point that she ran back in the house.
Yeah.
I went out there. And see, now we have an established relationship because we've had these conversations over lunch.
Right.
I went out there and I was able to pick up the bird. And I used a towel to try and pick up the bird, right? And the bird stayed there. And they weren't they were still squawking, the mama and papa bird, but they didn't do a dive for me. And I was able to get it to higher ground. I had to do that again this morning.
The parent birds knew your intentions.
See, I
that
think
you were
so.
Safe, that you were a safe
because
person.
we've had multiple lunch conversations
Right.
of me explaining to them. I am just trying to enjoy my lunch. I'm not here to harm you. So, yes. So my times outside have been quite serene-ish because I'm getting yelled at every time I go out there. So,
I love it.
Oh man. So okay. So here's the question I have for us for today. Have you ever had your body tap on your shoulder, something like, "Hey, we're not doing this today," but your calendar and your soul have not done a check-in with each other? Has that ever happened to you? The calendar is telling you this, and that, but your body is like, "No, we're not feeling that today."
For sure. I was thinking of this a few years ago. I think I've mentioned this to you before in some of our conversations, but a few years ago, a couple of significant things were happening in our lives that were either really exhausting or kind of painful. So there was some loss, somebody passed away. There was, just other things going on in our, in our world at that point. And my body started to feel really exhausted, but I wasn't really paying attention, like you were saying. I wasn't very aware of that until there was one day I had some commitments. I had maybe some meetings coming up or things that I needed to be working on for that week. And my body, I woke up one morning and my body could not get out of bed. It was that burned out. And I could tell like, oh, this isn't normal, because normally on a normal morning, I'm like, I have boundless energy. I can get to all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But this one morning, it wasn't working. My body was not working. And I think it kind of forced me to pause, and I think I just kind of checked in like, okay, wait, what's going on? What's happening? And I wasn't sick. Like, it wasn't like I had a flu or a cold. It was more just, my body hurt and it felt tired, like really
Yeah.
exhausted.
Yeah.
So I think for the rest of that day, I just started to, it wasn't like a conscious conversation, but it was wondering like, okay, body, if you can't do the things that we had planned to do today or this week, what do you need instead? Is there something different? And as I kind of pondered that question, or kind of floated that question out for myself and for my body, there were actually a few specific, very specific things that my body told me it wanted. Can I share the one or two?
Oh my gosh.
So one, and this was a very surprising thing to, like, I think the normal thing would be like, go take a nap or
Right.
get better sleep. Okay,
Yeah.
those are like the obvious ones, right?
Eat some ice cream, have some chocolate.
Oh, does yours tell you food messages? Okay, well,
Oh, heck yeah. You deserve a treat, girl.
here's what mine said. Mine said, go today, spend the day making a big pot of Chinese rice porridge. Now, Chinese rice porridge historically in our culture and family is usually made when you have sick kids, or when you have like a family friend who like needs extra help, and that's what you bring over for like a healing meal. It's kind of like chicken noodle soup for like Western culture folks.
Oh.
But we have like it's like a chicken and rice soup porridge that my mom has made many times, my grandmothers have made. And I felt like my body telling me like, spend the day, it's going to take some work, but spend the day making this big pot of soup and enjoy it.
Oh
And
my
like, I
gosh.
did that, and it was this really, I mean, it was like nice and like warming for my soul, but I also was, I don't know, like somehow a spiritual connection point to my ancestors and
I
my
was
culture.
just thinking that. Yes.
That was really rooted and grounding, and somehow inexplicably I felt like my body relaxing and being able to rest that day in a really powerful deep way.
No, as you were sharing that, I was literally just picturing just like a line of your like ancestors where this it would be a soup or a stew.
Soup. Mine was a
It
soup.
was a soup, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just being passed on, and how
Yeah.
many generations this was fed to, many stories were maybe said, or tears that were shed as you're eating the soup, sense of relief, like
Yeah.
just your body being infused with all of that. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you? What's come up for you as you've been listening to your body?
So okay, I was trying to think of a time when I didn't listen to my body, and I was trying to think of something that was maybe a little even like comical. But honestly, I can't think of anything comical, because it's always been sad when I have not listened to my body. It's
Okay,
just
tell us the
sad.
sad one.
So this was like the worst one I could think of, that I can remember, unless there's others that I've just, mentally blocked out. But this was like years ago, and I was home. I don't know why I was home, but I had to go to the office because I had an appointment to do like some like pastoral counseling with someone, and I remember not feeling well. Like, I was just so out of it. Afterwards I realized I think I probably had the flu. It was just horrible. But I went anyways. I tried to, crank a whole bunch of like cold medicine, and I think it was raining and it was cold, and I'm driving over there, and I feel like I was just maybe half conscious, and I get to the office, and the person ended up being a no-show. So I'm driving back, and as I'm driving back, I am just like, God, please just get me home in one piece. I don't want to be a harm to myself, to anyone else. And I pull in the garage, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking about, that was the worst idea ever. Why did I do that? And I realized Like my body, everything in my body was saying, was like literally screaming out danger. Not even that I was just sick, just danger. Don't do this. But I was so driven by, I think, a sense of fear. This fear of like disappointing this person that I had to cancel, letting them down, a fear of feeling of people looking at me that I'm not as committed, because people would show up for work, sick. This was also pre-COVID. I want to say after COVID, there's more people that are a little bit more
Right.
conscientious about that. Some have kind of slipped back, but prior to that, you could be just crazy, crazy sick and you still showed up, right? That's just kind of the culture. And so just afraid that, I don't want anyone to think that I'm just not committed and whatnot. But man, my body was screaming at me, don't do this, don't do this. And when I got back, why did you do that? What is wrong with you? So I think that was like the worst one that I've like experienced. It's like a physical thing. Like I should have just canceled it,
And I feel like what you're describing, many people are going to resonate with that, right? Like those moments where we're confronted, we can see our limits, we can feel the limit. And there's a tension between what we're limited by and the desire or the fear that might be driving us to like override that or something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we've all done that for, different reasons. And I think especially, I don't know if you feel this, but like culturally as a woman in our Western context where productivity is like upheld very
100.
highly, right? You kind of just, you stay driven and you get it done. You just show up and you bite the bullet. I think there is like, it's hard. It takes a lot of unlearning or,
Yeah.
undoing of some of those messages or fears that
Yeah.
can drive us to like really harm ourselves in the name of whatever, like, oh, I'm serving other people or I'm making good on those commitments that I had, right? And that's so
Yeah.
tricky, but
No, absolutely. And I think exactly what you said, being a woman, I know played a role in that. I'm sure this still plays a role just in a lot of my things in life that you just, especially when you're not feeling well, you just feel like you got to show you're stronger than that. And so whether that's what was being said or not said,
right.
somewhere along the line we get that messaging and we just like becomes infused into our bodies and we just keep pushing. So that's why I wanted to have that conversation today. So we're going to explore how tuning into the signals of our bodies can offer, I think, surprising wisdom and even serve as a sacred guide for our spiritual and emotional well-being. So Larissa, can you remember when you started to realize that your body was more than just a vessel, but it was an actual voice to listen to?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one specific moment. However, I was a few years ago, I think I was just around more people who were using that kind of language. Like, oh, I've been listening to my body,
Oh,
or I've been checking in with my body. And when I
okay.
first started to hear, this is like just friends of ours or in community or people, maybe some of people that I count as mentors in my life. And I feel like that was new-ish to my ears, or maybe I just hadn't noticed that before a few years
Right.
ago. But I think initially it really piqued my curiosity because that wasn't my paradigm at that time. I wasn't listening to my body as a source of wisdom. I didn't have a conversational relationship with my body. So I think there were probably a few moments like that that started to, I think, give me that kind of perspective and like a wonderment. Like, well, if, for example, a friend who lived with us for a couple months, her name is Natalie, and she would talk about that all the time. She was also very in tuned with nature and like the outdoor world. Yeah, she's a really beautiful friend, but she would talk about her body like that. And I think for me, it started to feel like, well, if Natalie has that kind of relationship with her body, I can see from the outside, like, what a beautiful thing that is for her. What a beautiful thing it is for her to like pay attention to that, right? Pay attention to days where she felt extra energy for certain things or less or whatever. So I think that started to help me cultivate, I think, that kind of relationship with my own body.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, okay. So you were around people who were just normalizing that language. And that sounds like it opened that door for you to be curious. And then you had the added gift of actually having a person there that was living with you guys for a bit, like fully embodying that and just seeing just the blessing and the outcome of living that kind of a life. That's just interesting.
And then I think because of those things, probably even that day that I had already mentioned a few minutes ago, like a day where I felt really overwhelmed and exhausted, and my body giving me some wisdom for the day, hey, go cook a pot of, Chinese porridge. I think there was like already a sense of, oh, that can happen, like an expectancy or an openness.
Right.
So that when I had moments like that, which were actual tangible conversations that my body started to have with me, I think I was like ready for those and like willing to like engage in that kind of way.
Right. So you said in your background, you weren't used to people talking that way about their bodies. What was your norm of how they talked about their bodies?
Oh,
or did they talk about it at all?
Yeah. I mean, probably just like, probably functionally, right? Oh, I have these aches and pains in my body. Or I'm sick today, or, those kinds of things. But nothing like that was like, oh, this is a source of wisdom and a relationship, like a dynamic relationship that we can have to our bodies and in our bodies. And I think part of it, I mean, I'll use my mom as an example. Like I love my mom and and a lot of her life has really shaped how I live mine. One of the things I've seen in her is this dynamic of she loves her work. She's very committed to her work. And often her work has a high demand on her. Okay. And so it's totally normal for her to start to feel sick and keep working through that until she gets really sick. And that's just a cycle. And I've seen that. I'm like, man, I don't want to get in that deep into work, work rhythms and an inability to like know when to rest or how to balance life in a more sustainable way. So I think I've consciously like seen that as an example of what can be done. But anyway, all that to say, back to your question. Yeah, I think it just wasn't really like a listening to our bodies kind of thing. How about you?
No, yeah. Man, that's so interesting because even like what you're sharing right now, I can relate to that for sure about this, like you just keep pushing, even thinking about why did I still try to go and make that appointment even though I was so horribly sick? Right. And yeah, I know I can look back and think of like the fear of like all the things that I listed, but as you're sharing that, I've even thought about how culturally speaking, that was like a part of my formation growing up because it's something that my parents instilled in us as multi-ethnic kids was that, and female women, that we were always going to have to work harder to get just like an inch ahead. And that has taken me years to unpack because they meant well. I understand what the message was. Yeah. Sometimes you can give the right message, but the way it's received, because now I have my own dynamics that are going on, right? And so the way I internalized that message was that I cannot listen to my body because when it's telling me to slow down or rest, I can't do that because I'm always going to have to work a little extra hard, And so I wonder sometimes if there's like a cultural aspect that can come in when it comes to how we are engaging with our bodies as well.
Right. And no, I resonate with that a lot. That could be
a
we could
whole
do a
other.
deep dive. I know we keep saying this every time, but I feel like there's an element of, I mean, there's the layer of assimilation, survival mode, generational, like how our ancestors or past generations did it because it was a needed for that time. And now are we in a place that that's not serving us in the same way, right? And we're getting into that. I think as women, I mean, both of us, we both grew up in church culture, right? In certain ways, different, but like in church culture. And I think in church culture, oftentimes there's also, you were getting at this earlier, but like this element of servanthood or volunteerism that is, that's the selfless way to do it. That's what, right, our spirituality and formation requires. And to self-care is not selfless, right? It's things like that, which is these funny messages. I also want to add, like, even as you're sharing, I think I was actually taught, maybe not explicitly, but implicitly taught to ignore desire. I think desire was usually posed as, don't listen to that because that is selfish, or that's not serving others, and don't trust it.
Yes.
And I think oftentimes our physical needs, our body has desires that are really helpful to us. But if we're like taught to not listen to that, we're like cut off from a whole source of wisdom. Anyway, I feel that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole discerning process that can go on there too. No, I totally hear you. For me, you know, so I shared something physical that where I haven't listened. This was something that started happening to me like feels like eons ago. I would get this funny feeling in my stomach. It was like, but I would always call it like butterflies in my stomach. And there was nothing else that was wrong. I wasn't like overwhelmed. I wasn't nervous. There was no anxiety. I wasn't sick. But all of a sudden, I just feel like these butterflies in my stomach. And it would just feel really weird. And then I started picking up on a pattern that when that would happen, inevitably something pretty like within the next like maybe like 1 to maybe 3 days or something, like I'd get a phone call. I mean, back then we didn't do like cell phones. It was, you got a phone call, or we had pagers, so you might get a page to get a phone call. That's what we had. I had a really cool pager. Okay, it was awesome, and somebody stole it, and I was so upset.
No,
but it was a really cool pager. Anyways, so I get a page with our little codes I call or whatever. So, but something was happening, and it could be something like was like a really big need. It could be something completely different, like. And I started noticing some of these patterns that were happening when the stirring would happen in my stomach. And so I started trying to pay a little bit of attention to it. But in all honesty, I was really scared because it just felt, one, weird. I wasn't scared to tell anybody what was happening. And it just kind of felt like not Christian, if I can say that, like, what do you mean that you're like your body, something's happening in your body? And like, does that mean like you can tell the future or anything like that? And that wasn't it at all. There was like something was stirring, like preparing me, like pretty much like when you're nervous that something's going to happen. Like it was preparing me for something. And so then it started to happen when I would meet people. And there would be times where I'd get this like butterflies in my stomach, and it would felt like a caution, and I felt so guilty about it because I felt like I was being judgmental, and I didn't even know this person. And it's like, oh my, like I was just like confessing, like, God, I'm so sorry, like I don't know how to make this stop and whatnot. And then, but inevitably something would happen where something's revealed in this person. They, something I can see how they're acting or something they're saying or whatnot, where I realized, okay, I need to be careful with this person. Maybe don't trust quite as much this person. Like just be careful with this person. And the times that I didn't listen to that, I found myself in really sticky situations that were just really, really, really challenging to navigate. And so
Yeah.
I finally started meeting with a mentor, and I shared with her what was happening. And she just really like comforted me and just was talking about the various ways that Holy Spirit moves in different types of giftings. And that became the start of a long journey and just understanding how giftings like work and how they manifest in people. A lot of times it just connects sometimes with your own personality, your own cultural background. Like our family, like historically has been very sensitive to things like that. And so, so yeah. So now the flip side of that, happens when things are like really good. Like I meet someone, like I'm in a crowd and I feel like God is just saying, really connect with this person. That's more of a visual thing that starts to happen. But that for me is like when I get that little butterflies in my stomach, and I can tell Gerson this, my husband this, like, oh, I've got these butterflies in my stomach. And he knows that that's not the same as me having like my stomach didn't like the food.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, have you prayed? That's like usually his first response.
Yeah.
Is something, what are you sensing? And we just have learned how to like navigate that now. And I don't necessarily like belabor it anymore.
Yeah.
I pray in the moment for discernment. Show me how I'm supposed to engage. Maybe there's something I'm going to be prepared to do. Maybe he's just saying, just start praying. And I may never get to know what the thing was. But now that I started engaging it that way, yeah, the butterflies in my stomach don't go quite as crazy because they're being listened to now.
Right.
I'm paying attention to them now.
I love that. I love that for you. And I love that there's like, it sounds like some of the initial, like either confusion or I don't know if shame, you didn't really use the word shame, but like, I don't know what to do with this. And like, I'm maybe afraid of what this is, into like where you're at now with having like for your own understanding, like, no, this is something that's actually been really trustworthy. And so let me press into that. Let me listen really deeply and just use it as a way of discerning. And I love that your husband and mentor, there's just other people who've been a part of like, I don't know, like helping lay a good foundation for that discernment too. It's not just like you off on your own trying to figure this out, right? But it feels like a really like in community when we have others who are unafraid to figure out like, well, what is this part of my life, or what is this part of my identity? Is there a way that God is allowing this to be a place of good listening and paying attention to my life and all those things? And it sounds like it's been like a really great journey for you.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful for that mentor because I really feel like I didn't have people around me, like what you were saying, that were using that language, that kind of language in my world at that point. Like that just was not, that was just not something you talked about. Like who are you? Kind of a thing. So it was definitely an answer to prayer for that. So, okay. We talked about a little bit about what this has been like in the past for us. What does it look like now, like in our current seasons of life, to listen to our bodies? Do you think it's changed at all for you?
I mean, yeah, I'm in my mid 40s now, and I do think that I'm still figuring out for this new season of life, I don't know if new, but like in the current season of life, what is my relationship with my body and how to honor my body well and take care of her and listen to her. Those are things that have gone from maybe side important or secondary or tertiary, right? Not a high priority to like one of the highest priorities. And I think it just, I don't know if this happens, does this happen to everybody? But like, I feel like my body's limits it's just more limited or a different kind of capacity. And so therefore a different relationship with like my world and my responsibilities or things that I would like to do. And it's come with a mix of like joy, but also frustration and also gratitude.
Yeah.
But I think it's become more of a primary element. Like every day I'm kind of confronted with moments like, well, if I don't listen to my body regarding this, I'm like not going to function for a week. Right. Or like,
Right. Yeah.
So I think to me, yeah, it's definitely evolved and changed. I think maybe because of season of life. I also I've been really focused on like my own strength capacity. And this is like, I think this is like physically like building muscle and going to physical therapy for my back and working with a personal trainer, like these kind of elements. But I feel like it's been a really spiritual journey as well, because I feel like God has been inviting me to build like a deep, strong core, like physically, but also spiritually and emotionally. Like nothing good can happen when you have a weak core.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And like, I mean, even just imagine like trees outside, like a sturdy trunk is going to be able to really like
Right.
go deep and grow out and all of these things. And so I think some of those have been themes in my life, especially recently, which has been, yeah, like fun and exciting and new, but also I think I'm still figuring it out and like doing
Yeah.
it really imperfectly.
Yeah. Which is very much the Serene-ish life, right?
Yeah.
The whole kind of ebb and flow of trying to figure all of that out. Yeah. Oh man. So I have also been on that journey, and I recognized when I was coming into my 50s that it was, kind of hard not to recognize it when you're going through menopause. Body is changing. And so I just started that journey of, as my body is changing, I want to like really dive into all the parts of me and get to know myself in this next season of life for me. And so I started to do a lot of work in like just spiritually speaking, with a spiritual director, a lot of like mental emotional work by meeting with like a therapist, and there's crossover that's there as well. But then the last piece of it was like the physical part, and that's why I started doing the training and running that half marathon, because running was very much a backbone of my life, just like what I've done, distance running. And I felt like it was a good way to re-engage something that I had done for the majority of my life, but in this body, and allow that to like for myself to like just get to know her better and see where she is right now. What does she need? What are the things that don't work for her anymore? How do we say thank you for those things and just embrace it? And then even how I was like engaging with my body is to like I'm doing right now, saying she. And like really communicating like that my body is a person. It's not separate from me. We're connected. But I wanted to be able to just honor her. So this, while I was out there and I was like so much slower than what I used to be, and things feel very different, instead of really focusing on like, she's so much slower, oh, remember when you could do this? I just was really starting to think about all the things that she's done for me over the years, the way that she has carried me so many places over the years. And so that is what for me has been like listening to my body is in this season has been me being the like getting to know her and where she's at right now. What are her needs? So that as we move forward in life, I can be honoring of her. And I can protect her. I can care for her. I can keep her strong, like what you're saying. Like, this was me going back to the core and just like, let's just revisit this and make sure that we're strong for this next leg of the journey.
Yeah.
So,
That's so
yeah.
great. I love that. And I love that how you're describing it, because I feel like I'm on a similar pathway, right? But I think it's like as we care for her, she cares for us. And there's this really beautiful like collective dynamic happening, which is pretty amazing. And I think it's kind of strange to me, or mysterious maybe, Like there's some things that we are conscious of and maybe we're growing in consciousness and awareness of. And then there are ways that our bodies have been taking care of us in a multitude of ways without our choosing and without our intentionality, right? Every morning we have breath, every movement that we make. I don't know, just it's pretty amazing the capacity or like the ability that our bodies have. But like you're saying, like when we can have this dynamic, caretaking, nurturing kind of relationship between me and my body, like, I don't know, that feels really magical.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember I was sharing this with someone, and they found it really fascinating that the way that, like you said, like the way I was talking about my body, like saying like she and all of this, and I started thinking, I know that maybe for some that could sound maybe just a little weird or uncomfortable, but we do that a lot, right? In the things that we have in life. So like my car, each of my cars, they've had a name. So the car I'm driving right now, her name is Luna. And the car I used to drive was the Whale because of just how like big it was and long. A lot of people name their cars, or they'll name their plants or things of that sort, right? And you're not necessarily giving them this complete life to it. I know Luna is an actual car, I'm not doing anything, but there's something about this like connection that you're having with that, Yeah. So when we talk about our bodies and we say things like she, I feel like we are definitely honoring this aspect of God's creation, that it's not just a mule to be driven to work. Right? That this is part of God's creation. So that kind of leads me to some of where maybe it's been hard, at least for me, to get to this place of like listening to my body for wisdom, because what I was taught was that you can't trust the flesh. I'm not sure how you were taught, but how have you navigated the whole thing of like, well, you can't really trust the flesh. The flesh is a bad thing. There's like a whole thing that comes around that, to now we're talking about listen to your body for wisdom. Like, how do we reconcile those two?
Right. That's such a good question. Wait, I want to hear more from your experience. Like so in distrust the flesh, that's what you're saying.
Right.
Like, and treat our physical world or our physical reality how? Like, what was the converse? Like, if it's treated with distrust, fill that out a little bit.
It was definitely like your emotions. You can't really pay attention to your emotions. Your heart is always going to lead you astray. Even the flesh, in terms of like the restrictions of how you can dress, what is considered appropriate, especially for women, what is considered appropriate, and all of like the messaging, I'm saying a lot of the messaging was that the flesh itself, the body itself, was just something that could not be trusted because it could lead you astray. It was something that is like a tool to be tempting and cause other people to stumble. It was something for you to control and restrain because of desires that could come up. Right. So it's, you have to control and restrain that. This is a vessel to be used to work. So that's why I think of things like a mule or an ox, or like, this is just here for me to pull the plow as we're out there on the farm. That's all this is right here. Right. That was my concept growing up.
Yeah. No, thanks. I think you and I probably have pretty similar formative experiences in that way. I'm thinking about, especially when I was a teenager or preteen in our youth group at church. So in that space and in that culture, it was, this is like in the early 90s. Okay. So purity culture, now we have that term, but like that is how the body was talked about. It was never like, oh, we're going to get discipled and formed into good relationship with our bodies. Yeah. It was always, here's what to do and here's what not to do. And the what not to do list was very long. right? Don't have sex before you get married to whatever. Or don't, dress appropriately so you don't cause other people to stumble of the opposite sex. All kinds of stuff like that. And it was, I think what you're describing was my experience too. Like, it was just these like inherent messages that it's really distrustworthy. And so, but we're not giving you more than that. It's not like we're teaching you what to do with that principle.
Yes.
It was literally just a rule. And then I guess we all have to figure out what that means for how I dress. And I don't know, for somebody in Hawaii, like literally we're in this like tropical climate. So we're, as kids, we're like raised with like wearing what you guys would call flip-flops, but we call slippers and shorts and tank tops because just that's functional. And then when I got to college, and I was part of like a Christian college community, there were a few people who approached me saying, you're like, the way you dress is causing the boys around you to stumble.
Get
and I'm
out.
like,
Get
what?
out.
And I kind of had no concept of what they were even saying, but I think they were saying like, don't wear tank tops because you're showing too much skin.
It's
and
the
I'm like,
shoulders,
what?
girl. Those shoulders, I'm telling you.
I love
Come
my
on.
shoulders.
Oh, man.
But yeah, no, I think that's how you're describing it. It was like distrust and then that's kind of it.
Yeah, that's a good point you brought up, that being taught everything not to do, but not actually teaching us how do we connect in a healthy way to our bodies. And so that left a huge gap, because I don't think we're talking about not having any type of control or being mindful of like of other people and whatnot. It's just when you're just given a list of all the negatives and everything not to do, but you're not taught what is good, what is holy, what is pure, like how do we connect to our bodies in a healthy way. That just does not set us up for anything healthy and just the way we relate to our bodies. And then what happens is, I think a lot of people start looking to others as to how to relate to their bodies, and if they don't have like a healthy messaging, so now we're criticizing our bodies, and now we're we're not paying attention to when we need rest. So in today's day and age, people look towards influencers, right, as to how they're supposed to connect with their bodies, and we're missing the whole spiritual context of it. A lot of things are very superficial as to like, your body needs to look this way. You got to have like the abs looking this way, and you got to have this, makeup and everything. Not against all of that. Just saying, that's on the surface. It goes so much deeper to that.
Yeah.
So as we've like looked at how the ways we were taught to not trust our flesh, how do we then stay connected to our bodies and God? How do we make that kind of connection? And I think I can start with that. I think the turning point for me, and I wish I could remember when I started thinking this, if it like where it came from. But I think the turning point for me was when I started recognizing when God talks about creation, his creation, and that we are stewards of his creation. And for some reason, it took me so long to connect those two things, that I am also God's creation. And so that is also a call for how I am stewarding this right here. And so, and then when you hear him like continue to talk about creation, you hear Jesus talking about creation and how God like loves, like, how does he take care of the birds and how does he provide here and whatnot. Like there's a love and there's a care for creation. And so I started looking, well, if I'm a part of that creation, how am I loving and caring of myself? And then there's, scripture that talks about to love others as you love yourself. And that I think maybe was like kind of like the cherry on the top, because there's a lot of the focus was about loving others, but we missed the part where it says to love others as you love yourself. There has to be that self-love that is happening. It's coming out of that you're going to love other people. And so that's when I started putting those pieces together, that so much of my life was like outward focus, and what I felt like I was taught in some way, shape, or form was that to have any kind of inward focus was very selfish. I started to now shift it and have more of an inward focus, trusting that as this was getting built up, it is out of the overflow of that that I would now be able to go and love others in a healthy, wholly connected way. Not just in my thoughts, not just in my good intentions, but like my whole self could be engaged in the way that I was loving others. So that's been my connection between like my body and God, and how I've navigated that.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. For me, it's really been, like you said, a deeper understanding that we are whole beings, right? We're made up of a body, mind, heart, spirit, and that whole being is connected to God, each other, the community of creation, the earth that we're on. And there's really no healthy way to disembody our spirituality or like airlift our emotions and soul out of our bodies. That's a weird assumption that I think some spiritual formation kind of makes. Like, oh, love God with your mind, but then don't trust your emotions. That to me now sounds bananas. Like, how would you do that? How do I divorce myself from my body and my feelings? There's no way. I'm sorry. And so I think part of it is recognizing like some of what we are saying, like some of the spiritual roots or formative experiences, maybe from our childhood or earlier years, there were some assumptions that I just don't feel like are actually how God made us to function. And then just learning slowly how to cultivate that kind of relationship with God and with our spirituality in our bodies. I think one of the simplest things that I've been doing to build that connection or to deepen my own sense of how to do this kind of life that we're describing is just slowly engaging with God and with myself, like consciously in my body. And by that, I mean engaging my senses and engaging things like, okay, today, like I'm breathing in and out. What if like my breath can be a point of connection with God? So, right, some people use the language breath prayer or like walking with God. And I literally like some days I'm going for a walk and I'm conscious, like I'm doing this with God in my body. And so the function of walking, the function of feeling the ground on my feet, the function of breathing or smelling the scents around me or listening to the things going on around me in my world, I think start to slowly then become these connection points with God and with myself. And then I think from there, it becomes not scary, right? Like not unknown. It becomes more of a familiar way of doing life with God and with one another. So I think that's how I think about it right now.
Oh, gosh, I love that. And those are all really attainable things to do. I mean, I love that. Okay, well, we have a few takeaways we want to kind of go over for our listeners. So, because it's, really good conversations, but then it's like, hey, now what do I do with this? What are like a few next steps? So we want to go over that. But before I do, I want to just take a little bit of a break here and just remind our listeners that we do have a Substack. So if this is an episode that is resonating with you, we would invite you to come and hang out with us over on Substack. It's called the Serene-ish podcast. And there is where we're going to post bonus reflections. We'll maybe share some resources and host our listener chat space. So you can subscribe for free. Just head over to the Serene-ish podcast.substack.com. and we would love to have you there. So if you're the kind of person that likes a little goodie bag, then some of these episodes will have a little goodie bag, and you can go over there. And you know what? No shame here. I love a good goodie bag. So.
And we will respond. Brenda and I are excited to
Yes.
engage in conversation with listeners.
100%.
So we're excited for that.
Yes. And just like your ideas of what are things that you want to have conversation about. Like we really want to have those conversations that if we were sitting on the front porch with you, you'd want to talk about. So please just drop everything over there. So, okay. So we want to talk about some practical takeaways to help us connect with our body. So I have just like 3 here. And before we dive into that, because Larissa, you were talking about engaging our senses, like, and what it is that we do. So I'm going to, our listeners can't see this, but I'll put it in the camera. Do you see my candle right here that I have? Okay. So what I do is when I'm in a session and, or like something like this, where I just really want to make sure that I am just staying focused and grounded, I light a candle because the scent, and I always make sure I'm picking the right scent. The scent is something very calming for me. Out of the peripheral vision, I see the flickering of the candle, and that just reminds me of God's presence. I'm leaning on Holy Spirit to guide me in that conversation. And this particular wick does a crackle. So I can even hear the little crackle on the side. And it's just a reminder to be here and to be present. And so I engage my senses when I'm doing that. So here are some of our ideas. Check in with your body like you would a friend. Just take 1 or 2 minutes a day to pause and ask, what's my body feeling right now? And just do this without fixing or judging. Just let your body, Larissa, you mentioned it at the very beginning, when you asked your body, I think you said what she needed in that moment, that you couldn't, like you were just so tired. And then the next one is respect the body's signals as sacred, not selfish. And I know this may take some work to be able to kind of navigate, and that's great work to do with this spiritual director or coach. Fatigue, hunger, tears, restlessness, they're not interruptions to your spiritual life. This is why we said Serene-ish, guys. Sometimes these are the goats, and we got to learn how to navigate it with the goats. They're just part of life. So respond with kindness and become that can become a form of worship. And then a third way is to incorporate a daily body prayer. Exactly what Larissa was talking about. Try a simple practice like placing your hand on your heart or your stomach and praying, God, help me hear the wisdom you've placed within my body. You're not praying to your body when you're doing that. You are acknowledging God Creator speaking through your body. Go on the walk that she was talking about and engage your 5 senses. Those are my favorite walks. I promise you, when you go on a walk with God and you drop into your body and you are fully aware of your feet rolling on the ground, my legs are moving, my arms are swaying. I know it maybe feel like awkward at the beginning, but I promise you, it just brings that walk so alive. God just flowing through you. So you would love that. So these are the few of the practices that we want to be able to recommend. Larissa, anything in there that you're wanting to add or you're wanting to encourage anybody in?
Yeah, this is a subtle thing, but I think this maybe relates to all 3 of those practicals and anything else that people might come up with as a way to honor our bodies. But I know for myself, I can get angry or frustrated with my limits or my needs. And usually that comes out as apologizing. Like, I'm so sorry, I'm sick, I need to rest.
Oh, I do.
Right?
That
Like,
all the time.
so I don't know if that's just a Larissa thing or other people share in that, but
yeah.
but I've learned to start to listen, like, why did I apologize for that? That's communicating already to myself and to others that that's a thing to apologize for,
Right.
which is strange. But yeah, I think just in maybe the flip side, instead of apologizing or being angry or upset with ourselves for having limits and that our body is communicating, I think there's a way that I've started to feel a little bit like I can honor my body. I can be grateful to my body for the messages that she's giving me because she's taking care of me. I think it goes back to some of our earlier conversation, which is a really different, we can just notice like how we even feel and think about our bodies.
Right.
And again, without necessarily changing it or judging it. But I think as we notice that, we'll start to notice our starting place. And that can help us as we maybe take a few steps into living this kind of thing out in our lives.
I'm so glad that you said that. I literally had to reframe a text message several times because I kept catching myself apologizing for my limit. And I had to like ask myself, am I sorry for my limitation, or is there something else that I'm sorry about? And I was sorry I was not going to be able to have the engagement. That's totally different. And so I just said, I'm sorry I'm going to miss our conversation, period. And then, and whatever, like things aren't, whatever, I have to go meet this need and whatnot, so I won't be able to meet. I kept the two things separate. But I'm so glad that you said that, because it just happens so naturally just to automatically apologize for our limitations instead of seeing our limitations as invitations as well. You know, so glad that you said that. Well, that's been a great conversation. Some good reminders of how we can connect with our bodies and with God, and that this is an avenue for the Holy Spirit to speak wisdom to us. I hope you guys as listeners, this has been encouraging to you. Our hope is that you're able to see you're not crazy for listening to your body, and want to encourage you to just keep connecting. And if this has stirred something in you, this is a great conversation to have with your spiritual director, a soul care coach. Really want to encourage you to reach out to them, and maybe you've taken some notes, some thoughts along the way. Sit down and have a really holy conversation with them about what this can look like in your life. It's really important to take into consideration what your background has been, your cultural context, your season of life. So practice grace and mercy with yourself. We love Serene, but we are very much embracing of Serene-ish. So until next time, we just pray blessing over you, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.